1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Exit.
Announced the arrival of the flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome, everybody, to this Tuesday, June 14th, 2016 edition of T&Z Talk. And we have a lot to get to in the next hour. So really strap in, because it's going to be a pretty amazing hour of radio. Anyway, joining me, I'm Tony Trupiano, by the way. Joining me now is Richard Zombeck. Richard, of course, is the co-host of T&Z Talk, and he is the Z in T&Z. For those of you that aren't aware, he's a magnificent writer, writes for Huffington Post and Liberals Unite. And Z, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
As it is to be with you, Tony Trupiano, the T in T&Z.
Well, it has been a very interesting day. President Obama went after Donald Trump pretty hard, as did Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump continues to make a complete and utter ass of himself. The media is all over his case, as we're going to find out. If we have time, net neutrality had a huge victory today. Not that that's over, but it was a huge victory for people like you and I and everybody else. And just a whole lot going on, Z.
I must have missed the net neutrality thing, which is not like me, because I generally write stuff about that. So I'm gonna have to find out what you were just talking about.
Yeah, well, basically what happened, I mean, we might as well just talk a little bit about it, but basically what happened is the courts decided that, the basic tenets of net neutrality is that everybody should have access to the same information, the same technology, etc. And as many people are aware, the cable companies and those that provide internet service were looking to do tiered services where if you wanted better internet, you would have to pay more. And the courts basically said, no.
Yeah, actually what it was corporations wanted to be able to access people faster. So Netflix would have to pay more. Right. Not necessarily the consumer, but obviously that would be passed on to us. But your internet services wouldn't cost more, but something like Netflix might, because Netflix would then have to pay for a wider pipe in order for you to get to them.
Absolutely. So anyway, if we have time, we'll get into that a little bit later on. But, certainly we go back to radical Islamic terrorists. 3 words that have seemingly made Donald Trump some kind of hero with a very minor part of our population. Of course, this is politics of fear, etc. As we learn more and more about Omar Matinzi, what we're learning is that he was mentally unstable. He abused his wife. He was bullied as a kid. He had spent time, oddly, and maybe not so oddly, at the Pulse nightclub multiple times. He was on gay dating sites. Now, you and I talked earlier today, and I said I don't know if he was looking for victims or was closeted in some way, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way at all, Z. There are a lot of people that are conflicted about their sexuality, that hide it, that live these really very difficult lives because they are either married and are seemingly straight, or for whatever reason they're single and are afraid or ashamed, whether it's because of their religion or whatever it is. Was he in that category? I have no idea. But he is very complex, and as we learn more, I don't think this was terrorism. Certainly, it was terror. But I think this is a very sick man.
Well, and there's a lot of research that also shows that most, not most, but a good percentage of homophobes are in fact have homosexual tendencies and leanings.
Well, so that's, part of the equation. Now, the other part of the equation, well, there are lots, this is multiple parts of the equation. It certainly places focus on domestic terrorism. I get that. And the candidates and the president are addressing that. But this is about real people. Now, I don't know if you want to play the entire thing. But Anderson Cooper decided to do a tribute to those that were murdered at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. It's very emotional. I would suggest people go watch it, even after you hear this. It's about 6 minutes long. So if you want to, start the show by perhaps honoring those that have been fallen, we can do that now.
A list of names. There are people who loved and were loved. There are people who have families and friends and dreams. And the truth is, we don't know much about some of them. We want you to hear their names and a little bit about who they were. Edward Sotomayor, Jr. He worked at a travel agency that catered to the gay community. His family says he was witty, charming, and that he always left things better than he found them. He was 34 years old. Stanley Almodovar III. He was a pharmacy technician. It was the last video that we saw of him was posted on social media. It showed him laughing and singing on the way to that nightclub. He was just 23. Luis Omar Ocasio Capo. He was a dancer and a barista. He was just 20 years old. Luis Vielma. He worked at the Harry Potter ride at Universal Orlando. He was just 22. Juan Ramon Guerrero. His cousin said Juan came out to his family just this year and was afraid they might not accept him, but they did, and they embraced his boyfriend as well. He was 22. Christopher Andrew Leonone, known as Drew. He was Juan's boyfriend, and his mom says he established the Gay-Straight Alliance at his high school. He was 32 years old. Eric Ivan Ortiz Rivera. A friend says he was always willing to help everybody and sacrificed a lot for his family. He was 36. Peter O. Gonzalez Cruz. He worked at a UPS store, memorized apparently all the regular customers' names. He could make anyone smile, his friend said. He was just 22. Kimberly K.J. Morris moved from Hawaii to Florida just a few months ago to help her mother and her grandmother. She was a bouncer at Pulse nightclub. She was 37. Eddie Justice was an accountant who texted his mother from the club, texted his mother saying, "Mommy, I love you." He was 30. Enrique Rios. A friend says he was cool and a funny dude who could tell people, don't let the world hold you back from your dreams. He was 25. Anthony Luis Laureano Disla, a talented dancer born in Puerto Rico. He was 25. Jonathan Antonio Camui Vega. He worked for Telemundo, first in Puerto Rico and then in Orlando. He was just about to turn 25. Corey James Connell was a student at Valencia Community College and hoped to become a firefighter. He was 21. Mercedes Marisol Flores. Her father says she was a happy girl who had so many dreams. She was 26. Dianca Deirdre Drayden. Her family called her Dee Dee. She was a bartender at Pulse. She was just 32. Miguel Angel Honorato managed a Mexican restaurant. A colleague says he was an excellent boss and a good friend. He was 30. Jason Benjamin Josephat, a student at Southern Technical College, where a faculty member calls him a sweet kid with a bright future. He was 19. Darrell Roman Burt II was a financial aid officer at Kaiser University, was passionate about volunteer work. He was 29. Jean Carlos Mendez Perez was a perfume salesman. Apparently hit the gym almost every day, and his friend said he was always happy. He was 35. Perez's longtime partner, Luis Daniel Wilson Leon, grew up in a small town in Puerto Rico and was a shoe store manager. He was 37. They died together. Frankie Jimmy de Jesus Velasquez, a professional dancer specializing in a traditional folk dance of his native Puerto Rico. He was 50. Amanda Alvear, she was a nursing student at the University of South Florida, was 25. Martin Benitez Torres. He was a college student in Puerto Rico visiting family in Orlando. He was 33. Juan Chavez Martinez. His coworkers at a hotel say he was a kind, a loving person. He was just 25. Gerald Arthur Wright worked at Disney World. The coworker says he was wonderful with the guests. He was always smiling. He was 31. Leroy Valentin Fernandez worked leasing apartments. A coworker says he sang Adele in the office until they couldn't take it anymore. He was 25. Tevin Eugene Crosby, dedicated, hardworking business owner from Michigan. He was just 25. Brenda Lee Marquez McCool, she had 11 kids, beat cancer twice, and often went dancing at Pulse with her gay son. She supported him that much. She was 49. Her son survived the shooting. Angel L. Candelario Padro recently moved to Orlando. He was new here. He had just started a new job as a technician at the Florida Retina Institute. He was 28. Gilberto Ramon Silva Menendez was studying healthcare management. His family says that he was the light and life of all family gatherings. He was 25. Javier Jorge Reyes was a salesman at Gucci. Friends say he was always positive. He was humble, a lovely friend. He was 40. Shane Evan Tomlinson was a gifted singer who performed at weddings and clubs, was 33. Simone Adrian Carrillo Fernandez worked at McDonald's, where he brought in birthday cakes for his coworkers, and had just gotten back from a trip to Niagara Falls with his partner. He was 31. Oscar Aracena Montero was Simon's partner. He was 26. They also died together. Rodolfo Ayala worked at a blood donation center, was a Puerto Rican native, loved to dance. He was 33 years old. Frank Hernandez, he worked at a Calvin Klein store, was a great brother, and had no gender tattooed on his arm. He was 27. Xavier Emmanuel Serrano Rosado was a dancer, described as hardworking and friendly, proud of his son. He was 33. Akira Monet Murray, she recently graduated from high school, was planning to go to Mercyhurst University and play basketball. She was just 18. And Christopher Joseph Sanfeliz worked at a bank, was said to be the most positive guy around, was just 24-year-old. Luis Daniel Conde was a makeup artist, co-owned a salon with his partner. He was 39. Juan P. Rivera Velasquez, he was the partner to Luis. He was 37. Antonio Devon Brown was a captain in the was a captain in the U.S. Army Reserve and a graduate of Florida A&M. He was 29. Alejandro Barrios Martinez was 21. Joel Rayon Paniagua was 32. Jean Neves Rodriguez was 27. We don't have pictures of these people. Il-Marie Rodriguez Sullivan was 24. And Paul Terrell Henry was 41 years old. We think it's important that you hear their names.
It actually is important that we hear their names.
Well, clearly Anderson Cooper had a difficult time getting through that, understandably, see. And it is, I'm just glad that we played it. I'm going to leave it there. I don't know that I need to touch it beyond that. Did I lose
No,
you?
I got a little verklempt.
I was just going to say that. Well, it's difficult. It's difficult at so many levels. And on the way out and about today, listening to NPR, they're of course covering this in a very significant and beautiful way, actually. And I listened to some of the victims that were injured and what they went through, and the horror that was, that people were playing dead, and he was shooting bodies that were presumably already lifeless. There were reports that he was laughing during all of this, but nobody has said that he was using any kind of Islamic phrases or praising Allah, nothing like that.
There are a lot of reports from the family. Going back to what you said, he was on social media, he was on apps, he was on gay apps, he was in the gay bars, he was in the clubs, he was bipolar, he was on steroids. His wife had left because he was violent. Both of both his wife and his father have said at different times that he was not religious. He drank in those bars, alcohol. So I don't want to speculate, but my guess is, and this is just my opinion, is that he had a problem with the LGBT community. He was a homophobe. He was prone to violence, and he used ISIS and let's call it, for the sake of argument, radical Islamic doctrine to give him an excuse to commit this crime.
It's, there aren't really words, Z, to fully help people comprehend that something like this can happen in our lifetime. A member of the House of Representatives in a protest walked out during the moment of silence last night. And he's from Connecticut. His name escapes me right now. But when the media asked him why he did that, he said that when he is out in public and people ask him what we're going to do about all of this, gun stuff, he said, I don't want my response to be, I'm going to be silent for 10 seconds. And he says that he will continue to walk out during moments of silence, that God forbid this will happen again. Here's a statistic.
Was that Chris Murphy or Richard Blumenthal?
It was Richard Blumenthal. No, it wasn't. He was a member. He's a member of Congress. He's not a senator. But here's the deal. You ready for this stat? That's going to blow you away. Since Sandy Hook, there have been 892 mass shootings in this country.
Yeah.
892 mass shootings. People can define that any way they want, but it is just wrong on so many levels. Anyway, you collected a lot of audio for today, and I think I just want to kind of hand it over to you and let you direct us on what you'd like to play and why you found it interesting.
Yeah, I did. I did also. I believe it was today. Paul Ryan called for a moment of silence. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, Republican, called for a moment of silence. And at the end of his moment of silence, he called for a vote on a bill. I don't even know what the bill was. It's an inconsequential, ridiculous, puny, silly little bill. And the Democrats in the House went completely ballistic and said that they wanted a vote on gun laws. They went just completely out of their minds. They screamed, they shouted, they protested that Paul Ryan was refusing and has refused for years now. Well, not Paul Ryan himself, but the Republican-led House has refused for years to address any kind of legislation when it comes to gun laws. And what I found interesting, I've got a couple clips, and surprisingly, it is Bill O'Reilly from Fox News talking about guns and talking about Orlando. So let me play the first clip about him talking about Orlando, and then we'll talk about that, and then we can maybe go on to the second clip that I have of him.
So my solution to the gun problem is this. Number one, Congress debates which guns are allowed. You can't have a bazooka. You can't have hand grenades. No, you can't. So it's perfectly legitimate for Congress then to say, what kind of rifles should people be able to buy?
So President O'Reilly would be open to the idea that AR-15-like weapons or AK-47s could be limited.
You bring it out and say, we believe these weapons should not be sold in the United States, no matter what the states say, because federal law always takes precedent, all right? And debate it and define it. 1996, I believe, they did stop many of the high-tech rifles. They banned them, and that lapsed. We should look at that.
All right.
Because
so let's get back to Islamic terrorism. So I wanted you to address the idea of guns.
Because your crew out here is applauding stuff they shouldn't be applauding. What we need to do here is every single crime committed with a gun in this country, whether it's Orlando terrorism or whether it's Chicago in the inner city drug gangs, every crime is then a federal crime. All right? No more local, no more state. It's a federal crime.
Well, don't you think there would be an outcry from people who believe in states' rights?
Outcry doesn't concern me. All right? Then
there's an outcry over the Second Amendment, and that does concern you.
No, I don't care.
You don't care about the Second Amendment?
I do, but the Second Amendment doesn't give anybody a right to commit a crime with a gun.
I understand that.
Doesn't give anybody a right.
No.
So all gun crimes, every gun crime, including selling illegal guns, is a federal crime with mandatories. So if you rob a 7-Eleven with a gun, not only are you convicted of the robbery of the 7-Eleven, which is a local beef, but you get 10 years in the federal penitentiary. Mm-hmm. On top of that, that takes away
mandatory sentencing. I know we've got to get
all
other things to talk
crimes.
about. Mandatory sentencing. You believe that some limiting of access to high capacity and semi-automatic weaponry is a reasonable thing for Congress to
Congress passes that law
All right.
and then federalizes the gun crime.
What do you think, Tony?
I think I'm in shock.
I'm with you. Listen, I watched this interview. It's you could find it anywhere. Colbert, O'Reilly, and O'Reilly. Here's what I'm thinking: is I watch him and I go, "Holy crap, he sounds reasonable." And then I think all of the nut jobs that watch O'Reilly are, either going to slam O'Reilly or, they're actually going to start considering this. Now, this might be a reach, so bear with me here. Is when I was typing up the show notes, and I wrote an article on Liberals Unite about Obama's speech about he addressed, and we'll get to that, but he addressed the use of the term radical Islam. For the better part of the last 2 decades, the GOP has been co-opted by the NRA. They have done absolutely nothing. We talked about on yesterday's episode Willie Geist at the end of a Morning Joe episode saying, if they haven't done anything about guns when 20 kids were killed, what's to think that they're going to do anything now? And I think the difference, and I think there is a difference, because the reaction is different. There's a palpable difference in the reaction to this. And I think it's because of Donald Trump. I think that so far they have their reaction has been veiled, right? It's been veiled in legislation. It's been veiled in really their lack of caring, their lack of compassion has been veiled in this sort of protection of the Second Amendment. And Donald Trump is exposing that in such a way that it's becoming obvious how the GOP's reaction is completely discompassionate and really they don't want to do anything. And Trump is showing that. He's making that obvious, just like he has everything else, just like he has the racism, just like he has the bigotry, the xenophobia. He's the embodiment of what the Republican Party has stood for in a very veiled, with the use of dog whistles sort of way that hasn't been as obvious as it is now with Donald Trump.
Well, beyond politicizing this, and Donald Trump has really forced a conversation that needs to be had, but it misses the bigger point of what's happened in Orlando. I had posted something earlier today on social media that the headline was something along the lines is Donald Trump had a leadership test and he failed miserably. No question, all of that is true. But let me share something with you that I know you're probably aware of, but it certainly fits into what you were saying. In 2015, Z, every Republican senator voted against expanding background checks to include no-fly and terror watch lists. Give me a rationale for that. Why would you vote no against that? Every single Republican voted no. Oh, and by the way, every single Democrat voted yes. Yeah. So, which is the party of the people, my friend?
Yeah, and if you take Orlando, for example, and it's kind of a lousy example to bring up, but Vox at FwdRad.io brought it up that also almost every single Republican voted against any kind of legislation about hate crimes against the LGBT community. So they've continued to dehumanize the LGBT community. Not only that, but they've amplified the underlying hate and fear that a small portion of people in this country have when it comes to the LGBT community. They've brought it out and magnified it with this kind of legislation. And this is the kind of stuff that is going to continue to happen. And because the very people who we have elected to lead this country are engaging in this kind of rhetoric and vitriol. That, you look at your leader and you go, oh, well, then it's okay to be like this. It's perfectly normal. Someone in Congress is saying exactly how I feel. And it's painful to watch because they're the ones that are supposed to be guiding us and telling us that these kind of crimes and this kind of xenophobia and this kind of hate is unacceptable in this country. And they're the very ones that are telling these lunatics that this is perfectly okay, that go ahead, do it.
Well, and for those, again, that aren't aware, we're doing some education today. The AR-15, which was used in the massacre in Orlando and in other mass shootings, was developed for the U.S. Army's Special Operation Forces. That's what it was designed to do, is to allow the U.S. Army Special Operation Forces to do what it is that they do. It was not meant to end up in someone's trophy case in nowhere, USA. And we should be very, very concerned about that. Let's get to some of the audio that you have as well. There's a second piece with Bill O'Reilly and Stephen Colbert, and I don't know if this would be the right time to do it. I just didn't have a chance to listen to the audio before the show.
Yeah, this is fine because basically he's talking about ISIS and the kind of crimes that are being committed in this country. It's right along the lines of what we were talking about. After that, I want to get to Savannah Guthrie talking to Trump about his tweet because we addressed that. But let's listen to O'Reilly on Colbert again. This is another part of the same segment of Colbert's show.
This is war. Accept it.
Will you think of this? Do you see this as a hate crime that he chose a gay club?
Everything ISIS does is a hate crime.
But this man
the
was
whole
motivated.
day.
He's not a member of ISIS. He's not a member of ISIS. He
used the ISIS ideology to
understand.
justify him killing gays because ISIS wants to kill gays.
And what
just
about
like Hitler wanted to kill gays.
And lastly,
same thing.
do you think this is a mental health problem at all?
No.
Because this person,
No.
his wife said he had a history of domestic abuse, he was bipolar and on steroids.
Okay. Look, that's an excuse.
No,
this
she's
guy
not excusing him.
Look,
she got away from him.
This guy is evil. No, what I
will
mean by
accept that.
excuse is
I will accept that
he's
evil exists.
Evil. He's evil.
I will
and
accept
so is
that
the ISIS
evil exists.
movement.
What is the proper response to evil?
Destroy it. confront it. You contain evil because you can't. You destroy evil. And ISIS is evil. This Matain is evil. He's dead. Now we have to get the rest of them.
If you contain evil, can it destroy itself?
No, I mean, unless you're Plato. I mean, come on. This is life and death here, you know? I don't want to see any more dead Americans in the streets. We have to put the fear of God in these people, and we have to do it soon.
Bill, thank you so much for being here.
So what I found interesting in that is two people with very different ideologies, discussing actually quite reasonably how do we do this? How do we stop this? Right? And
why is it you think that Bill O'Reilly, when he's not in the Fox studios, I'm sure it's ratings, he's never that reasonable on his show. Never. And I haven't watched it in a long time, and the reason is for that very reason, is that he's not reasonable. He lies, he manipulates, he really does pal around with Donald Trump. He's been very supportive of him, and I'm very concerned about that, Z.
Well, I'm with you. I am with you on that. I am wondering if, in light of what's happened and where the discussion is going, if that might not change a little bit.
Well, we'll see. Let me throw a quote. Donald Trump, a quote from Donald Trump today. He said the following: "This is a disgusting and outrageous allegation by Donald Trump," is how this starts. And this is what he said. "The president continues to prioritize our enemy over our allies, and for that matter, the American people." Now, factually, Z, there is no basis for that. Who's going to call him out?
Well, he thinks the shooter was born in Afghan, quote unquote.
Yeah, well, we know he was born in.
Well, not only that, but he was born in Queens, the same place that Donald Trump was born.
Absolutely, and you never hear Donald Trump bringing that up. It's just. It's astounding.
It really is. And speaking of Donald Trump's tweets, so he had tweeted out. I'm trying to remember which one of his ridiculous tweets we're talking about. But not only did he insinuate that Obama was part of a sleeper cell. They were talking about this on Morning Joe this morning, right? Which was and Morning Joe and Mike Barnacle basically said that this made Donald Trump ineligible for the office of the president. He was essentially accusing a sitting president of treason, that somehow Obama is a Muslim radical Islam sympathizer and a sympathizer with ISIS and wanted this shooting to happen. I actually unfriended someone today because of this whole conspiracy theory that the shooting in Florida was fake and it was all staged by Obama. But I'm not going to get into that. What this next piece of audio is about is Savannah Guthrie was talking to Donald Trump about a tweet of his in which he essentially bragged about having foreseen and foretold this shooting, apparently months ago. So let's listen to this.
You were tweeting quite a bit yesterday, and among your condolences to the victims and the family members of this shooting, you also stopped to tweet that you appreciated the congratulations you had received for your stance on terrorism. And later you issued a longer statement. It said, I said this was going to happen, basically congratulating yourself for predicting another terrorist attack. To a lot of people, that struck them as unseemly, that at this moment that 49 people lay dead, you were focused on yourself and giving yourself congratulations. What do you say about that?
It's totally false because you didn't read the second part of the tweet. I said, well, I appreciate, because I've been receiving tens of thousands of tweets, literally tweets and calls and letters and everything, because I've been the one that predicted it, and I'm the one that said what you should be doing. And I don't want the credit. And I said in there, well, I appreciate your nice statement.
But at the same time, you're calling attention to the credit you receive.
I want you to be strong. What I said is I want you to be strong. I want you to be vigilant, and I want you to be smart. I don't want the credit.
But
I don't want people to tweet that.
But by the very nature of stopping and saying, but you did stop and say, oh, I acknowledge and collect your thanks, and then you later say in this statement, I predicted this, which, in fairness, literally everyone predicts that there will be another terrorist attack. There's no one who doesn't recognize that that's the world we live in.
No, because he certainly doesn't do much about it in terms of intelligence, in terms of.
But why are you giving yourself credit for predicting something that everyone knows will happen, sadly?
Oh, I don't know that everyone knows. I'm not sure that the president knows, if you want to know the truth. He won't even use the term radical Islamic terrorism. I think he thinks everyone's just a sweetheart. He won't even use the term radical Islamic terrorism, which I think is insulting to our country, and it's insulting to everybody. And if you don't use the term, if you don't describe what's happening, you're never going to solve the problem. He will never solve it.
You know, I got to give her props for what are they? She's on the Today Show, right? And he called in, and I got to give her major props for just saying, why are you even congratulating yourself for something that anyone could have predicted?
Absolutely. You also have another piece of audio that I think fits in nicely. It fits in
very nicely. With Obama's mashup today. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, and I'll let you take it.
So he addressed reporters and basically the country from Treasury today to talk about not only Trump, who he didn't mention by name anywhere during the speech, but also how he is being chastised for not using the term radical Islam or radical Islamic terrorists or whatever. And actually, I've got an article up about that on Liberals Unite that actually just went up about 5 minutes ago. But here's kind of a mashup of the speech. The entire speech you can find in my article, and we'll link to that in the show notes.
Enough talking about being tough on terrorism. Actually be tough on terrorism, and stop making it easy as possible for terrorists to buy assault weapons. For a while now, the main contribution of some of my friends on the other side of the aisle have made in the fight against ISIL is to criticize this administration and me for not using the phrase radical Islam. They know who the nature of the enemy is. So there's no magic to the phrase radical Islam. It's a political talking point. It's not a strategy. And if we fall into the trap of painting all Muslims with a broad brush and imply that we are at war with an entire religion, then we are doing the terrorist work for them. But we are now seeing how dangerous this kind of mindset and this kind of thinking can be. We're starting to see where this kind of rhetoric and loose talk and sloppiness about who exactly we're fighting, where this can lead us. We now have proposals from the presumptive Republican nominee for President of the United States to bar all Muslims from emigrating to America. We hear language that singles out immigrants and suggests entire religious communities are complicit in violence. Where does this stop? Because that's not the America we want. It doesn't reflect our democratic ideals. It won't make us more safe, it will make us less safe, fueling ISIL's notion that the West hates Muslims. We've gone through moments in our history before when we acted out of fear, and we came to regret it. This is a country founded on basic freedoms, including freedom of religion. And if we ever abandon those values, we would not only make it a lot easier to radicalize people here and around the world, but we would have betrayed the very things we are trying to protect. And then the terrorists would have won. And we cannot let that happen. I will not let that happen.
Pretty resounding speech.
Absolutely. And you know, the president effectively addresses everything that Donald Trump has said that resonates with the uneducated, and he loves the uneducated. Donald Trump does. It's beyond my comprehension. It's beyond the idea that there are people. Ken Burns does a commencement address at Stanford and rips into Donald Trump. Who would have thought that? What could happen? There are really very smart, educated people within the Republican Party and outside the Republican Party that are united in a way that is astounding. You think about how diverse the Trump haters are, and it really has to give you pause. Can you imagine this man as President of the United States of America, the Commander-in-Chief? I can't fathom it.
You know, and the thing is, Tony, is when I hear him talk, I still have this hope that somehow he's like some kind of Democratic plant that was put in there just to purposely lose the election and expose the Republican Party for what it is. I just keep hoping that he's going to come out and go, "You've all been punked. I was just kidding."
Yeah.
But look, you can see it all now. because I mean, this is beyond. I don't know. I mean, I'm hesitating because I just hate these correlations. But this is beyond Mussolini and Hitler. You know, this is even more ridiculous than it's almost comical. It's a caricature of hate and bigotry. It's that bad. And watching him read from a teleprompter is an unbelievably painful exercise for me. I don't even have words. He sounds like a toddler with a runny nose.
Yeah, but it's some level, and the reason that I'm pausing and the reason that I'm stuttering is at some level, see, the name calling, the joking, the incredulousness of this, and it's only going to get worse. Let's just pause for a moment and think about how Donald Trump has responded to the massacre of 49 innocent people and 53 that were seriously injured. And the doctors in the hospitals around Orlando today said that the number of dead will most likely grow. And think about his response to that. His response to that wasn't about love and compassion and understanding. It wasn't about keeping quiet. It wasn't about finding a gentle way to mourn those who have been lost. His immediate reaction was, "Told you I was right."
Yeah.
Well, you know what? He wasn't. He wasn't right. This isn't a terrorism act. It's truly the act of a sick, mentally ill man who needed help And those that were around him are as responsible for this as he is, because they did nothing. And this is not uncommon in families where they have mentally ill members. They don't know, or they're afraid to intervene. They're afraid of the person. They're afraid of what might happen to them. They're threatened by it, or they're ashamed of it. But don't tell me that there are not people in his life that knew that there was something seriously wrong with him and did nothing.
Well, and people in the GOP that knew there was something seriously. Look, and we should talk about this on another show, but the only way that the Republican Party can survive Donald Trump is to lose.
You're right. That is the best thing that
it's
could
the
happen.
only way. They got to take a hit for it. Now, they may not be able to rebuild for the next 16 years, because depending on who Hillary Clinton picks as her running mate, it's looking like the Democrats are going to hold the White House for the next 16 years. And the down ticket, thanks to Donald Trump, is most likely going to suffer as well. I would hope. That's holding on to the last little shred of positive thought that I have for democracy in this country, that people will come out and vote and vote large, because you and I both know that the majority of the people in this country swing left, if not center left, particularly on social issues.
No question, that's true. Listen, you've got a couple bites from Samantha Bee. And again, I didn't have a chance to audition any of the audio before the show. But you picked it for a reason. I trust that. So can you set some of this up?
Yeah,
for
let me. Let's play one, because it is long. It's about almost 4 minutes long. But her show. I tried to get some of it without her swearing, because there's a lot of swearing in that segment. But she addresses guns, and what Congress is doing and not doing about guns, and as usual, her righteous indignation and shock and awe, really, when it comes to this topic, particularly after yet another slaying in this country.
We can't constitutionally get rid of all guns, but can't we get semi-automatic assault rifles out of the hands of civilians? Sam B wants to take your guns away. Yes! The ones that mow down a room full of people in seconds, yes, I do want to take those guns away. These high-capacity penis substitutes are a shitty choice for hunting and home protection, but perfect for portable mayhem. That's right. What Paul Giamatti is to biopics, the highly profitable AR-15 is to deadly mass shooting. It turns up at gay nightclubs, movie theaters, an elementary school, colleges, even an office party with coworkers. It's nicknamed America's Gun, and unlike handguns, it can be bought in Florida with no waiting period. Perhaps the governor would like to comment on that?
Is there anything that you can do on a policy level to stop something like this in the future?
Look, we're dealing with a tragedy right now. Our prayers go out to everybody impacted. Law enforcement's doing their job.
If only shooting victims could dodge bullets as deftly as you dodged that question.
There will be plenty of time to think about how do we continue to improve our society.
What the are you even talking about? This wasn't even Orlando's first high-profile gun murder of the weekend. Stop thinking and do something to improve our society.
We're going to continue to work on how we do that. Look, we're a resilient state. Bye-bye.
What? Oh, okay, bye-bye. Later, skater. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Seriously, that guy bolted so fast, I'm surprised every wall in the Florida State House doesn't have a Rick Scott-shaped hole in it. But the governor didn't get too far before CNN managed to get him on the phone.
There are a lot of Americans watching right now who want to know what they can do to help. What can they do to help, sir?
I think the biggest thing is pray. Pray for the victims. Pray for their families. Pray that this never happens again.
You heard the man. The biggest, most helpful thing you can do to ensure this never happens again is sit quietly in a room with your eyes closed, talking to nobody. Wait a minute. We pray after every mass shooting, and yet they keep happening. Maybe we're not praying right. Can we check the instruction manual? Thus, also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Oh, shit. We were supposed to do something while we prayed? To be fair, Rick Scott did sign a law restricting personal backyard shooting ranges in crowded residential neighborhoods, which is apparently something you have to tell Floridians not to do. But he spent most of his administration relaxing Florida's gun laws until they're looser than the twat of an elephant who just had triplets. I don't know if that's because Scott's head is essentially a semi-jacketed 209-millimeter round point, and I don't care. Because as we were reminded yesterday, controlling lethal weapons through a patchwork of state laws is pretty useless as long as America still contains roads and Indiana. There is no shortage of troubled 20-somethings out there, and whether they're radicalized by ISIS or homophobia or white nationalism or a dislike of movies, we are making it far too easy for their derangement to kill us. So until we as a nation find the political will to reject a mass shooting per day as the price of freedom, I'm just going to pray. Are you there, God? It's me, Sam. Please bless the victims and their friends and families in their time of unspeakable pain. Give us the courage to say no more. And while you're at it, please send the NRA a plague of boils. Amen. We'll be right back.
She really just does a tremendous job since she's left the Daily Show. I mean, what I liked particularly in that audio. That segment of the show was her reference to the Bible. That, it clearly says, yeah, pray, but then do something.
Again, there's just so much. And I think one of the things that is truly bothering me about this is there is so much confusion being created by Donald Trump. And I'm not going to even put this on the GOP. They're straightforward. They're performing fellatio on the board of the National Rifle Association. If we look at, and it's not that hard to do, folks. In fact, somebody just criticized me on Facebook for, I told somebody that was wrong about gun control laws, that he needed to do some research. This person jumps in and says, why don't you do the research? Well, I have. Yeah. It's not my job to educate everyone that disagrees.
I'm tired of people doing people's homework for them. In fact, Bill O'Reilly on Stephen Colbert addressed that very issue of that gun laws that he pointed to Australia, that shootings, since they instituted stricter gun laws, has gone down 70%. And he addressed what has happened in this country as well. And again, go find the clip, listen to it, do your own research. I've gotten to the point now where, Tony, seriously, I'm either unfriending people, asking them to unfriend me, or suggesting that they up their meds. Those are my three arguments now.
Yes, I saw your tweet on that
with people that say ridiculous things. I got into it with a guy on Twitter yesterday who said it's all about having a good guy with a gun. And I pointed out that in Orlando, there was an off-duty armed Florida cop who was working security there. And the response was, well, he was incompetent. And so...
Yeah, well, somebody just posted that to my Facebook page.
So what exactly constitutes a good guy with a gun? You idiot that's probably been to a gun range maybe once? Are you kidding me? And then another woman, and I know we're getting short on time, but this other woman posted up this long diatribe of, I'm the person standing next to you or behind you in the supermarket with a gun under my shirt. And if a gunman walks in, I will be there to protect you and my family. Right. The first thing you're going to do is crap your pants, and then you're going to crap my pants. Because You don't have the training. I mean, leave. Unfriend me. Go away. Do not post that kind of crap on my wall or on. I'm completely beside myself on this. I mean, I really am. This kind of garbage, like we live in the Wild West where everyone could just draw their guns like they're Clint Eastwood, is just getting ridiculous.
No question. No question at all. By the way, the congressman I mentioned earlier is Jim Hines. He was on with Rachel Maddow last night. I'll grab that audio and we'll explore that tomorrow. Before we leave, though, Jake Tapper of CNN was a guest on NPR. And I really liked what he had to say in general. But before we get there, Z, we do need to mention two things that are important, very important. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton will be sitting down this evening, and we'll certainly talk about that in the next podcast. Secondly, and I think that this is critically important before we play the Jake Tapper audio, is the Washington Post credentials were pulled by Donald Trump's campaign for dishonest reporting. This is a direct attack on the First Amendment. As someone that has leaned on the First Amendment for 25 freaking years of my life, it enrages me that he is doing this.
Well, and I was talking to this about my wife this morning. It's the rest of the media needs to stand up. The rest of the media needs to Fox News included, Breitbart included. They need to get behind the Washington Post and defend them and stand up for them and tell Donald Trump that this is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable in this country.
Absolutely. Let's play that Jake Tapper audio and then we'll wrap it up on the other side.
TED Radio Hour is supported by the MD Anderson Cancer Center, making cancer history.
In this campaign season, the media has received plenty of criticism. Even some journalists say the media isn't doing enough to hold candidates accountable. One well-known TV news anchor has decided to do something about it, as NPR's David Folkenflik reports.
It's not just Donald Trump, Jake Tapper says, but Trump does loom awfully large in his thinking.
He has uttered some of the more extraordinary things that I've ever heard a major presidential candidate utter.
Tapper is a veteran political reporter who anchors an hour-long news program for CNN 6 days a week, including the network's prestige Sunday public affairs show.
One of the things that has concerned me this election cycle is the abdicating of any sort of moral responsibility that we in the media have in terms of he said, she said coverage.
Tapper says lingering unease translated into journalistic action in late May. Here Tapper was on his weekday CNN show, The Lead.
Every time you think this race cannot get any more ludicrous, it does. This latest episode started this morning when Trump cited a bizarre and completely uncorroborated report, and I use the term report loosely, in the National Enquirer.
The Enquirer is owned by a Trump associate, and it published a cover story directly linking Ted Cruz's father to the assassin of President John F. Kennedy. Cruz was, at the time, still in the Republican race, just barely. That morning, Trump called into Fox News' morning show.
His father was with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to Oswald's being shot. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. What is this, right prior to his being shot? And nobody even brings it up. I mean, they don't even talk about that.
The Fox host didn't challenge him. Tapper told viewers on CNN the media didn't talk about it because there was no evidence linking the older Cruz to Lee Harvey Oswald.
So any suggestion that Cruz's father played a role in the Kennedy assassination is ridiculous and, frankly, shameful.
In the 2 weeks since, Tapper's been on fire. He denounced the State Department for editing a videotape to remove an embarrassing admission about nuclear negotiations with Iran.
Before we can get into why lies number 1, 2, and 3 happened, the Obama administration needs to understand that it's not acceptable just to leave this where it is.
He also skewered Hillary Clinton for her past statements on her emails. Yet, Tapper does not draw an exact equivalence. In an interview earlier this month, Tapper pressed Trump on his claims that a federal judge in California couldn't sit fairly on lawsuits involving Trump University.
Jake, I'm building a wall, okay? I'm building a wall.
The judge was born in Indiana to parents who had immigrated from Mexico. Trump kept telling Tapper the judge's rulings were wrong, implying connections with Clinton.
You're calling into question his heritage.
I think he should recuse himself.
Because he's
then
Latino.
You also say...
Tapper repeatedly tried to drag the questions back to his point.
If you are saying he can't do his job because of his race, is that not the definition of racism?
No, I don't think so at all.
No?
There's been a movement in journalism toward fact-checking public statements. Tapper's new approach knits that fact-checking impulse with an explicit emphasis on fairness, seemingly driven by Tapper's own definition of decency.
There needed to be something that, in a broadcasting way, would be able to stake a flag in the notion of this is not true. This is factually false.
Today, Tapper went after Trump for his remarks after the mass shooting in Orlando. David Folkenflik, NPR News, New York.
I've got mixed feelings.
Okay, go ahead. We don't have to. I mean, we can keep a few more minutes.
So the CEO of CBS said Donald Trump is bad for the country, but he's great for CBS. And a year or so ago, Wolf Blitzer announced on CNN that he was going to become more of a reporter and holding politicians to task, that they were going to do real journalism. And I have yet to see that. And while I believe that Wolf Blitzer may have been genuine in what he wanted to do, I think he probably got his hand slapped by CNN.
And this is a story that will continue to evolve. That's going to do it for us today. See, clean it up for us.
Yeah, let me give the 411 on TNZTalk.com.
I like that. I like that a lot.
The 411. Yeah. Let's see if we have any millennials that know. You know, I've got a car that a millennial will never steal. It's a shift. It's a manual transmission.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I've got a built-in security system. So you can find us at TNZTalk.com. I just want to let those of you who are listening know that our numbers are growing, and we need your help for them to continue to grow. Share us on Facebook and Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by going to TNZTalk.com. Also, we cannot do this for free. So go to TNZTalk.com, click on support, and find out how you can support us, either by sending us money, pledging, sponsoring us on a monthly basis, or sharing us and reviewing us on iTunes and the myriad of other places that we can be found. Again, if you like us, loan us out to people. Send them a link. Tell your followers and friends to listen to us. That goes a long way as well. Tony?
All right. Well done. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back with another podcast soon, very soon. In the meantime, Z gave you all the information you need. So that'll do it for us today. For Richard Zombeck, I'm Tony Trupiano. And as always, we ask that you be well.
Oh, yeah. Can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.